right, brother. So tell the people who you are and what it is that you do.
All right, man. So my name is Caliber. At least I go by Caliber. And I am owner of Caliber Kennels out in Caldwell, Idaho, and I breed the XL American Bullies.
Before we go back to your history, when you say XL American Bullies, I noticed there's a large split in the community. And,
yeah, for sure.
So would you consider yours more show type or more working type?
I consider mine more functional. Let's put it that way.
Okay.
I'm not a big fan of the modern style XL American Bully, where we're losing, I guess, the fundamentals of what a dog should be. A lot of people are breeding dog based on size and color, whereas our program is focused on building a proportionate dog. And I know there's standards to the American Bully and whatnot, but we believe we're in functionality over appearance first.
Absolutely. When you first started out, what was your vision of an XL American Bully? What were the first things you were looking for?
Well, let's put it this way. My first dog came from basically a breeding that happened on Craigslist. When I moved to Idaho in 2017, I was up and down Craigslist looking for anything amongst the words pit bulls, not knowing that I was after an American Bully. And when I got a few dogs, I started to notice, I'm like, oh man, this dog's growing long hair. Like, this is a mutt. Rehome. I didn't know exactly what I was looking for until, I want to say 3 years ago, when I came up upon my first stud. His name is Chingon. And he's not a big dog, but man, he is quick to learn things. He's loyal, and most importantly, he is a dog. He is not a couch potato. Yeah, he could be still and whatnot, but when it comes for instance, my wife, she will trust him around our property over us having a firearm, because she just feels safer with that dog. She just trusts that dog so much that she says, just let him loose. If something is, off around the property, just let him go really quick. And he'll sniff it out. He's just that on point, and I love that about him.
What was your first actual breeding that you planned?
My first actual breeding that I planned was with, let's go with Zilla and Lucian, which still hasn't happened. Obviously, it's not upon the fault of myself or the owner of the stud. It's the fact that we were through an incident where Zilla had to, get some treatment, and we were kind of postponing her. But she was supposed to be bred a year ago, and we're still going to make that happen in a few months. But our debut breeding recently happened, and it took a while to get there because, we talked earlier, I'm very picky, and I want to make sure that every breeding has a purpose for our program going forward. So right now we did a Mira and Cannon, which unfortunately was a singleton, but then we got going on with Zilla and Lucian, which is going to bring us a little bit closer to the bully type that we like, without losing the fire that we first initially fell in love with.
What do you mean by the term singleton?
Singleton. We were expecting more than one puppy out of this litter, but it was just one male, man.
Oh, okay.
And he's turning out to be an amazing dog, but right now I'm not too focused on males. So I was okay with letting him go. In return, I'm going to get some straws in a year. So at the end of the day, the client is happy, I'm happy, and I can keep going forward in my program without taking this as much as a loss.
So when you're collecting straws, this is something I've been interested in recently. When you're collecting straws, is there one of those machines that you store them in or something? Like, how does that work?
Well, the contract that him and I have at the moment is that obviously I'm going to pay for everything when it comes to the collection of said stud. And it's going to happen through his vet and my vet are going to communicate to make sure that he gets collected. Obviously, we're going to do pen, hip, OFA, embark, wisdom panel on him. Because obviously, if we're going to bring that back into our program, we want to make sure that he has a healthy dog and that we're pushing forward a healthy dog. But their vet is going to collect the dog and ship that semen to us, and it's going to stay frozen in our vault until it's time to bring them back out again. Basically, we're working on a full circle as we're puzzling everything together.
Right, but do you use like one of those chambers to keep that in?
Yes, that would stay with our vet.
Okay. All right. That makes sense. Um, Now, what kind of measures do they have in place to protect something like that?
You know what, man? This is the first time that we're doing frozen, so I wouldn't be able to go too much into detail with that. But I have heard many great experiences from this, and it's also the best way to make sure that you have your stud for the future use. That's how you keep the program nice and consistent, nice and tight with certain traits. Obviously, there is a DNA test or DNA profiling that you should be doing to make sure that you're not getting some other dog. And obviously, you got to pay your fees yearly for storing the dog and whatnot. But that's as far as our knowledge as it goes, because this will be our first time stepping into that frozen bulk semen.
Okay. All right. So, start from the beginning. When did you get involved with dogs, and what made you take this avenue?
Well, my dad used to breed German Shepherds, Doberman. I think he recently started breeding Australian Cattle dogs. And there was a time for about 2 years that he was breeding backyard pit bulls. He just didn't know it. And he kind of whatever he had at his disposal, he was curious to kind of put it together. He was what I like to refer to him as a backyard scientist.
There you go.
But he did that because he's always been in love with animals since he was a kid as well. And he introduced me into my line of work because I work as a reproductive technician for cows. My day in and day out is breeding and being involved in the gestation period of a cow, from her being a heifer going forward. So for me, stepping into breeding this breed wasn't so new because I kind of knew the fundamentals of when to outcross, when to line breed, when to inbreed, So I wasn't, entirely stepping into an avenue where I'm like, man, I hope this works out. I was more so like, okay, how are you going to go about this? And as a youngster, we were prohibited to own this breed of dog, because as being a part of a Mexican household, we're told whenever you grow up and you got your own money, you can buy whatever you want. And the first taste of freedom, like I said earlier, I started going through Craigslist looking for pit bulls, up and down, day in and day out, until I found something that was interesting for me to keep. But whenever I was researching these dogs that I was so in love with, I would always go back to the early 2000s. The early 2000s, I'm talking Blue Line Smoky, King Lion, stuff like that, yeah, where the dogs still had fire in them and they just were still functional.
Absolutely.
Nowadays, I'm looking at these dogs like it's an accessory for fashion, where these dogs are being sold on the color coat they have, who weighs the most. But at the end of the day, these dogs just don't function like dogs. And that's why, if you look at my program, that's why I'm kind of not taking that avenue, where I'm like, I'm taking the long road to put together something that I feel passionate about. It's going to take me longer. It's going to take more investing. But I know that I never dabbled to something that was like the, whatever was hot of the month, whatever was popular. Mm-hmm. I stuck to my morals, you could say.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That's a beautiful thing. So walk me through, how many dogs do you have?
I currently have 5 dogs, 2 males and 3 females.
Okay. And what does your day-to-day look like with these guys?
Man, my day starts pretty early. I clock into work at 4 a.m. So I'm up an hour early taking them out, making sure they're settled. And then while I'm at work, my wife takes care of them as well, because she's as involved as I am with this, That's what makes this whole lifestyle a little bit easier on me, because she gives me a helping hand. Like as of right now, she's waving at me, letting me know that she's going to let the dogs out, and clean up after them or whatever she needs to do. And that's a beautiful thing, because that helps me push forward to do something a little bit more peaceful. We're not clashing heads or nothing like that. And obviously, after I get home from work, that's when I take over again. Obviously, I get home from work around 12 p.m. and obviously all the way to 9 p.m. That's my responsibility. So there's not a lot of going out And luckily, we purchased a property that wasn't so far from downtown, where we still have a life outside of the dogs, but we're not, leaving the dogs behind.
Gotcha. I understand. So, is there certain things you do more than she does, or she does more than you do, or is it pretty much just whoever's there at the moment will handle X, Y, and Z?
Yeah, whoever's present at the moment will handle certain situations. She knows when it's time to feed, when it's time for them to go to the restroom, when it's time for them to get their exercise in and whatnot. She's up to date with all that. Sometimes she doesn't even have to ask me. If I had a long day at work, I'm taking a nap, I oversleep or whatever, and she's already out there. I can hear her from the window, like, hey, go outside, do this, do that. And it's a beautiful thing. It definitely takes some weight off my shoulders.
For sure. Now, when it comes to exercise, what are some of the things you do with them?
We like to make sure they know basic obedience. Obviously, sit, let go, drop. We do this thing where if they're in a command, we'll let them know break, and they can break a command and do as they please. We stick to the basics. That way they're able to go out in public and not, show too much of a intolerable dog. We want to make sure people know that these dogs, they're friendly, they're smart, but there's still a responsibility. Not everyone could just walk up to us and hug our dogs, not because the dog doesn't allow it. It's because we want to make sure that people know that there's boundaries when it comes to not just this breed, but other dogs. Mm-hmm. But we always stick to the basic obedience. No matter, we have 2 rescue dogs. They're both German short-hair pointers. They also know the basics of it, and everyone gets along. But that's kind of what we stick to. We don't go too overboard. We don't say we do animal protection or that we train dogs, but we like to make sure that our dogs are respectful when we have guests over.
Mm-hmm. Now, are your dogs keen on protection work?
I could say Chingon would be the closest thing to do protection work. We had initially, when we first had him and only him, we had initially wanted to get him some bite work in and get some protection work in with the police force. They do like this whole monthly trial thing where you can test your dog. It's nothing official, but it's something to get your dog exercise. And he was doing pretty damn good. But obviously it was a trial, and after a while, it got a little too expensive, where we had to, stick to the basics that he learned there, and obviously excel in that in our own property, in our own time.
I got you. So you have functional dogs. Do you have future plans to maybe put them in any kind of competition?
Yes, we want to get into weight pool, man. That's been one of our main goals, is getting our dogs introduced to pulling a little bit of weight, not just sticking to being outside in the backyard or whatever it may be. We want our dogs to have a little bit of purpose. Unfortunately, we're in Idaho where you don't see a lot of that. We have to do a lot of traveling to get some knowledge off of that, weight pulling. And I only get 1 day off a week, so it's kind of hard to make that travel. But we hope that in the future we're able to make that happen.
I gotcha. I noticed a lot of these XL bullies that are involved in the weight pull. They're starting to have a new name, that working pit bulldog.
Yeah.
Would you say your dogs are the same as that?
Man, that's a great question, because when you say working pit bulldog, it brings me back to the whole reclassification of the ADBA.
Yes.
And the American Bully.
Yes.
And I love that the ADBA is doing that, because the reclassification, if you read through it, that kind of is more on par to what we're aiming towards. Yeah, our dogs are registered with the ABKC, some with the UKC, but man, I wish I could get everyone on the ADBA side, and we can't, because some of our dogs don't have more than 3 generations behind them, and they're asking for that. Okay. So we're hoping in the future, once we get some breedings, under our belt, to move towards that way, because our main goal is to have functioning dogs. I heard you talk about it a while back about the whole DBA and the reclassification. When you said that a while ago, I started digging through it. I'm like, wow, this has my name written all over it. I one day want to be strict on only sticking to this category.
I think a lot of these guys want to go that way because the American Bully as a title just says companion now, and you know.
And I don't totally agree with that. Sometimes, like I'm on that division where I'm like, man, I'd love to own dogs that are a little bit more of a dog and less of a liability as far as the couch potatoes may go. Because, like I've told you, like I want a dog that still wants to be a dog, and I can't seem to find that in the modern style American Bully.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, like once again, the ADBA has my name written all over it for something that I want to do one day. But man, like for me, the I guess you could say the peak where I love this breed the most, and I always refer to it, is when dogs weren't stacking next to each other. They were almost wanting to rip their heads off. And yeah, that might sound a little bit, irresponsible. And a little bit like, okay, he might be going a little too crazy with it. But man, like that look that those dogs had, you can't seem to find that nowadays. There's a picture, I think it was Remy with some other dog. I can't remember the dog.
I was just going to say Remy.
They're tugging. And I'm like, that's beautiful. That's beautiful. Obviously, it's a liability. But the look of those dogs, I'm like, man, was he 20 inches at Withers, if I remember correctly?
All I seen was pictures. I was not at the shows.
Gotcha.
But looking at his photos, I don't want to stretch him out wider. I want him to be exactly how wide he is, but stretch him up 2-3 inches.
Man, and then I have a buddy. His name is Luis over at Kennel 33. He's after the same thing. We're like, man, I wish he was just a little bit taller. We can't seem to get that without losing that rear or introducing a new breed, which personally I'm not a fan of because I want to stick to what we got going on right now. I'm not too sure if the registries have completely closed their stud books. If they haven't, they should, because we need to start working within the dogs we have in front of us. You start introducing new breeds, then man, we're going to have a variety of styles in a few years again. We're going to multiply what's going on right now even worse. That's kind of what I think where the Merle kind of stepped in, because that door was always open.
Sure.
But people took it to an extreme to the point where now Merle is a selling point. And that's where I'm like, okay, that's a different topic, obviously, but I think the stud book should have been closed a long time ago because we had it right, at least in my personal taste, we had it right in the early 2000s. They lost their vision completely, man. And that's why we just have so many varieties where I'm like, wow, like, this is kind of embarrassing. When I tell my friends or whatever, like, oh, I breed American Bullies, they're like, oh, the little pocket ones, the little ones that can't breathe, or the obese ones. That's what we're known for.
Yeah.
And that's a little bit embarrassing. I don't like being associated with that. That's why in my bio on Instagram and our website, I try not to mention American Bully until you get down to the science of it.
Well, I got into a conversation with a friend of mine. I'm not going to say his name because I did do an interview with him, but I'm not going to say his name because I don't know if he wants his name brought up in this context.
Sure.
But I had a long conversation with him, and he's switching breeds. He was doing American Bullies for a while, until he just lost taste for it completely.
Money has really kind of destroyed this breed, and not just this breed, it's kind of trickling to other stuff, where I see on American Bully boards, on Facebook at least, where people are asking, what's the next breed that we're hopping on? Like it's some sort of train to just kind of fuck up, move on, fuck up, move on. I'm like, yo, just leave it alone.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you got the potential to just stamp your own shit. That's just me thinking out loud.
No, and I appreciate that, man. And, once again, the reason my program is kind of, I guess you could say phenotypically we're all over the place, is because I want to be able to create my own outcross in-house. I want my main goal, and I always tell this to my peers, I want to be self-sufficient. I want to stop kind of relying on other breeders for their studs, their females. I want to have my own network in-house because I don't like what's going on outside. I'm not going to be persuaded to follow the next fad next month or in a year from now. I'm going to stick to my plan that I have been doing for the last few years, and I'm going to keep going forward. And that's kind of why my program's a little bit, they're not like phenotypically, they don't look alike, because I didn't want to start breeding playing cleanup. I wanted a clean slate, and I wanted to add traits as I went. And then once I figured out, okay, I like this headpiece, it's always dominant over here, but I like this chest. Guess what? Now I can put those together and start kind of puzzling it up in my, like how I envision it in my head, because I can't seem to find a consistency in a program where I'm like, he's got it down. That's exactly what I want.
Right. I mean, otherwise, what would be the reason to breed in the first place?
Exactly.
Yeah. I mean, I noticed the guys that are really breeding for a vision. It's only because they haven't seen what they want.
Exactly.
So, I mean, with that being said, with the XL movement, I've seen a handful of dogs, and I mean out of the thousands that I've seen a handful of dogs where I was like, holy shit, man. If you could put that on a factory line and just replicate it, that would be great. But
right.
It never happens. You always see the offspring is not as good or is a whole different lane than what that dog was.
But you know why that is, right? Because a lot of these people, they're stepping into this not knowing when to outcross, not knowing when to inbreed, line breed. They don't know the basic fundamentals on how to get consistency. Once again, they're going on what's popular, on what's going to give them more bang for their buck.
Mm-hmm.
That's really what it is. And once again, it's money that's really destroying this breed. And upon this breed, we're going to start trickling down. And once again, like you mentioned, Merle Doberman, that had to be a bully breeder that stepped out that way. That had to be. You can't tell me otherwise.
Either that, the other thought I had was maybe they could have possibly took like a Merle Great Dane and crossed it to
But I mean, what was the vision there? A little bit more sloppy?
Yeah. And they wanted it to look like a European line Doberman, so they wanted it larger. Right. Yeah, no, I see exactly what you mean. Absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, at least, there's a few breeders that step into this, and they're before they're purchasing a bunch of dogs, they kind of study what they want, and they find it, and they're like, okay, now I gotta wait for it, for someone to breed it. But a lot of these guys, they're breeding or they're purchasing dogs who, it's the hot dog of the month, and then it grows up, and guess what? That dog is no longer popular, and they move elsewhere. Well, that kind of damaged the equity of what you were doing. Like, why didn't you just stick to it? Mainly because a lot of these guys are followers. They're not really trying to staple something together. They're trying to, once again, line their pockets and then get out.
Absolutely.
And then we're left behind playing cleanup with their mess.
Sure. And the other thing, too, is once I discovered the magic of content creation, where YouTube has put me by accident, yeah, that was just an experiment. But yeah, man, it was just, I don't know. The deeper I got, the more fucked up everything looked, to be quite honest with you.
I mean, all the time I get my buddies like, oh, do you have red nose? Do you have blue nose? Is that a bloodline? I'm like, oh my God, please do not get me started on that.
Yeah.
That's like really like one of those topics where I'm like, okay, sit down here. Let me talk to you for a second.
Yeah.
We got to get this information out there,
If you come across another dog man, don't say that. That's what I tell my friends all the time. Like, what'd you say you had? They're like, oh man, his mother was a red nose, his father was a blue nose, and he had some American Terrier in him or some shit like that. I'm like, don't ever say that to somebody that knows about dogs.
Oh my
don't
God.
say it. Don't say it because they're gonna give you a look.
Nah, for sure. I get told all the time, like, oh yeah, my dad used to own like a 250-pound pit bull. I'm like, are you sure that was a pit bull? I'm like, yeah, it was a red nose mixed with something else. I'm like, oh, okay, it was a mutt.
Yeah, and if it was 250 pounds, that dog didn't live long.
Yeah, exactly. That's kind of where the story always goes to. We're like, oh yeah, he died for some weird reason at 6 years old. I'm like, oh, you don't say.
Yeah. That's a big dog.
That's also what a lot of these bully breeders do. They'll say, "Oh, my dog weighs 100 and something pounds." I'm like, why is that the first thing you want to mention? Like, let's talk about those pasterns.
Yeah.
Like, what about that rear, man? Like, sure, your dog may weigh that much, but how is his health? How long is he gonna live?
Yeah.
And I mean, once again, man, this breed, it's a headache to really look at and kind of dissect and see where we're heading. I'm curious to see where we're gonna be at in 10 years.
I can make a guess.
What do you say?
Well, I think, as much as I regret to say this publicly, I think it's the truth. I think that just the term band dog is becoming popular.
Oh.
You see what I mean?
Yeah, I see what you're going with this.
So I think everybody's going to think, oh, I could just mix anything to anything. And I think the whole bully...
You're giving them too much freedom where they're like, oh, fuck that, I'm going to go do this now.
Yeah, I think the bully game is going to fade out. And it's going to be this guy who's bred 20 different ways is going to cross to this girl who's bred 20 different ways. And I think the band dog game is going to be fucked up. And I hate to say that, and it breaks my heart, but I can't help thinking that's going to happen, because guys who are, like myself, fed up, with... My initial goal a long time ago, I always had that band dog idea in mind that we spoke about before. But when I was going to get into dog breeding, my first thing was thinking, let's do some XL bullies. That was my first thing. That was the first thing I thought, probably about 6-7 years ago. I was like, I got my band dog thing in mind, but before I do that, let's just, if we're going to breed some dogs and try to figure this thing out, and, my first thing was, how cool would it be to have an XL bully line of my own? And man, when I go and I start to take a look at all these dogs, I'm just like, fuck, man, none of them look alike. One of them looks like a damn French Mastiff, and the other one looks like a stocky Doberman. And I'm just like,
give an inch, they take a mile, man.
Yeah, so it fucked me all up, dude. Like, I couldn't even get involved in the XL bully game. And like I said before, friends of mine who are involved in anything purebred now, I've been planting the seed in a lot of people, saying, this whole thing is going to go out of control. Before it gets too far, just start stamping your own name on your own dog and fuck the pure breed bullshit, because it doesn't exist anymore. And it doesn't. People get mad and all these things, and they just, they want to be purists, and I understand that, but I keep telling people, like I did the Lawton Bulldog thing. It's very simple. It's nothing yet. Not even a line, not even a strain yet. But it's just, if you got it from me, that's what it's called. Right. If you call me directly, it's going to be, well, there's some Boer Bull, there's some classic bully, she's got some Watchdog back there, some Gray Line back there, some Colby back there, but that's all way in the back, yada, yada, yada.
But at least you're honest with it, man, because a lot of people are doing that in the bully community, and they're thinking they're getting away with it.
Yeah. A lot of people are crossing, they're crossing everything. I'm just going to cross.
The difference between you and the modern XL American Bully breeder is that you're going for purpose.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
You have purpose for what you're trying to put together, which a lot of these guys are doing it for, be the biggest dog, to have this new color, to be a trendsetter.
Sure.
And that's kind of what it's been the poison for our breed, where I'm like, yeah, I could see either one, our breed being banned completely, because we're already seeing it in the UK.
Oh, yeah, there's a guy that hit me up on Instagram about that, and he wanted to try to kind of disguise his voice to get on and talk about, he's in the UK now, but he wanted to talk about the actual events that took place, because apparently the media spun it a certain way that wasn't legit.
That's true. I've heard many scenarios where, people are getting interviewed, and then on the news, you get cut off where it just sounds horrible.
Yeah.
You got they're watching you. You're watching your back now. It's only a matter of time. Like, what's the out on this? Like, I don't see an actual solution.
Right. Yeah.
And which is unfortunate because there's some people that really love their dogs and they're actually doing something good by their dogs.
Yeah,
and then
dude.
There's a few, well, not a few, a bunch that are not locating or relocating these puppies in correct homes or not giving them the education that's proper when it comes to this breed. Because I don't think, and I hope I don't put this in the wrong way, but I don't think this breed should be considered 100% family friendly, considering where our roots derive from. A lot of these old school dogs that I'm a fan of come from gray line working dogs that they're not going to be couch potatoes, man.
Oh yeah, they want to bite.
In homes where it's their first dog and that dog's jumping off the walls. But guess what? That breeder made a sale.
See, I'm glad you said that. I'm sure you heard my interview with Doc from Gray Line.
Yes.
He'll tell you straight up, no, I don't want a friendly dog. I don't want a dog that's going to walk up on everybody I know and want to wag their tail and be friendly and nice. No, that's not what that was made for. That was made to guard his backyard, guard his house. And the same thing when it comes to Watchdog Kennels, all those guys. I know there was some American Bulldog blood in there. But all these guys who are, like, if you look back in the pedigrees of the original American Bully, a lot of these dogs would bite the fuck out of you.
100%. What I get out of my boy Chingon here,
Chingon.
You get on a spring bull. What's that?
Nah, I just tried to say it. Chingon.
Chingon, bro, fucking, it translates to badass, and that was a name that the original owner gave to him, and it stuck, man. That's now, a lot of my buddies who can't say Chingon, they'll just refer to him as my Mexican dog. They refer to him like, oh, I can't say the name, your Mexican dog. I'm like, oh, okay, gotcha, Chingon. He'll get on a spring pole, bro, and he'll tear it up. He'll try to work himself up. He'll chase things. He'll do it on the command that I tell him, break. That's his word, and he lets go. And he'll go back to his crate. Once he's done, he'll just go to sleep. Like 5 minutes later, he'll be chilled out. And I like that. I like that balance. When you're able to control that, I find beauty in that. If I can't get a dog to do something, man, what are you doing in my program? Like I can't use you. It's not motivating to implement him into my program. Because that goes against what I'm after.
Right, yeah.
So that's why, so he's single registered. We only have his parents, obviously above on his pedigree. A lot of people love him, but when they find out that he's single registered, they don't want to use him. But then here's the thing, bro. We've lost track of breeding for the dogs in front of us, and we're breeding for pedigree. Because I've not DNAs, but I've done Embark Wisdom Panel where they'll tell you what breeds are involved in him. And it's like the fundamentals of what the original American Bully was. That is why I hold on to him. A lot of people will be like, what are you doing with that? You got other great studs. They have generations of great dogs behind them. But I'm like, yeah, go tell them to do what my dog just did. They won't. And the beautiful thing about it, the owner, Luis Salcido, he's not too far from me. He's given me the green light to use his sire. So I could work something and make something out of what I have in front of me. But I need the correct bitches to go along with it. And that's what I'm working on.
I got you. I understand.
Get everything correct. Okay, now it's time to implement them. That's why we're really fond of collecting them and putting them in the frozen vault. Because if they happen to pass by the time I finally get my perfect bitch, I don't want that to escape my yard. I want to be able to bring that back. So, that there's a quote. There's this guy on Facebook. Man, I think his name is Patrick E. Bates. A hashtag that he always uses, because he was around when the American Bully first took off. A hashtag that he always puts on every post that has some sort of American Bully with some fire in it. He uses, put the fire back in the bullies. And I love that.
Oh, absolutely.
I love that because a dog that has function is, for the most part, going to have confirmation.
Oh, yeah.
So for me, when he brings that up, I'm like, I love that. I'm gonna use that in the future. Obviously, I'm gonna always quote him and tag his name on that because I've always loved that quote since I first read it. Because not a lot of these dogs anymore want to be dogs.
Right. Exactly.
So when you fell in love with your boy Debo, correct?
Yeah. Well, he was the first dog I owned. That was a purple ribbon UKC dog, and he was just heavy, gaudy. Like I said, man.
Right.
When
you can't find that style of dog anymore.
You can't. You cannot. You cannot. The closest thing I got is my blue bitch now, Zuma from Blueprint.
Yep.
And the only reason that that Leroy gave her to me was because it was too hot. It was too hot. And
right down your lane. That had your name written all over it.
Exactly. So he put her in my hands, and the first 24 hours I had her, man, she wanted to kill everybody. Yo.
Damn.
And I was just like, oh my God, this is my bitch. Like, I love you. I love you.
Coming home with me.
Yeah. So walk me through your feeding regimen.
Right now, we were feeding Victor, and then they went through this whole kind of like a recall situation, and we noticed it before they actually recalled it, where we were seeing a difference in our dogs, and then we started seeing other kennels going through changes in their dogs. So we went to Purina Pro Plan, and that's kind of what we're on right now. We wanted to really step into the raw feeding diet, but the prices right now, man, are insane.
Oh yeah.
And me being in the dairy business and breeding cows and being a part of that, you would think I would get some sort of a discount for beef. No, man, it's the same thing, which is a shame. But I would love to get to that point soon, once I start getting some revenue coming in and it pays for itself. Because life is getting more expensive, as you probably already know. So, but I don't want to cheap out on feed. So right now we're on Purina Pro Plan. We do salmon oil, a little bit of supplements, and once in a while we'll switch it up because obviously dogs get tired of the same feed. And on Sundays we fast. We try to get healthy gut and kind of exercise that, but we don't fast bitches who are obviously pregnant or they just gave birth. That's kind of always been our feeding regimen as of right now. And I like it. It's a nice balance. Everyone seems to be happy. I don't want to mess with it too much because, I hate to say it, but these American bullies, bro, you switch one thing up and their whole thing just goes berserk.
Yeah.
I don't know what happened in the previous generations. My dog, once again, I'll bring him up. Chingon, I guess single registered. I guess you could say, quote unquote, backyard bred. I could feed that dog anything, and he won't go through the same changes as my other dogs. So, the other dogs, he changed one thing, man. Oh my God, like, they're going through it. Not like, obviously, like, worrisome, but I'm like, okay, I see a little bit of a change in your coat. It's a little less shiny. You're losing a lot of fur, a lot of hair, and stuff like that. But we like to, we find a recipe that we like, and we stick to it, and we go forward, And we try to give the best to our dogs because they're part of our program. We want the best. We want that back. We want to recycle. You give and you take. And that's kind of how I look at it when it comes to our program.
I think you need to go with you going, man.
Man, if I had a little bit more knowledge, I guess if I did a little bit more homework myself, Once again, my whole goal is not to be dependable on other programs. I want to be self-sufficient. I want to work between the network of people that I like, which is not a lot of people. I could probably say 2 names on top of my head that I'm like, that's all I fuck with. Like, I'm talking to them every day, giving them intel. Hey, what should I do? Asking them questions. And I know they're not going to go talk.
Right.
Because one thing I've learned about this whole bully game is that people love to talk.
Facts, absolutely.
They love to talk. I'm not too sure if it's the bully community or that's just how people are, or maybe that's just how grown men are, and I'm barely realizing it. Here's one other thing that I will add to it, and I won't get too much in depth with it because I haven't had the okay to talk about it.
Okay.
But my dog Zilla, whenever I mentioned earlier, you asked me, like, what litters did you have planned? What would have been your first litter, etc. One of the main reasons Zilla was not bred initially, and to kickstart our program, was because one day my wife was walking our dog Viper and Zilla down the street, and we kind of live close to the cuts a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
And some random big dog attacked her. She was pregnant. We were 2 months in, our current baby boy.
Mm.
She was attacked. Zilla and Viper went ham on this dog. My wife was there in the middle trying to break it up. Zilla would not quit. She kept telling me, because our neighbor called me like, yo, your wife is in the middle of the street. Come get her. I was at work. I rushed down. I took her to the hospital. She was passed out. And she goes, you got to go back. Animal control is looking for anything that has blood. And they're going to take Zilla and Viper. Yeah. So I go back there. I get Zilla. I was already saying my goodbyes, man.
Yeah.
I'll have to send you some pictures. Man, this dog was beat. And Viper, my wife was like, Viper really was the one that got in the way to make sure this didn't go overboard. And unfortunately, Viper, a month after, passed away because he caught something.
Mm.
And Zilla, a month later, was already back on the spring pool.
Oh, shit.
Like nothing happened to her.
Right.
Nothing. And Zilla was one of the first dogs that found out that my wife was pregnant. I'm not too sure if my wife was like, I don't know, I wouldn't say making it up, but Zilla was really attached to her before we found out we were pregnant. And
I've seen that before.
And when it comes to the spring pool or doing activities, Zilla's on point, bro, on point. When it comes to my family, she's chilled out.
And it's almost like they know, like, Daddy loves that thing more than me, so
I do my best to protect her.
Yeah, exactly.
So to take it a little bit further, so like I said, I thought I was saying goodbye to Zilla. I picked her up. Her teeth were dug into her snout. She couldn't open her mouth.
Mm.
She had gashes in her stomach and everything. Dude, I was saying my goodbyes. I went back to the hospital. Luckily, that was around the corner. And my wife's like, go stay by Zilla's side and don't come back until you said your goodbyes. And we were there, and she just wouldn't quit, bro. She wouldn't let go.
Mm.
And unfortunately, like I said, Viper did pass away. He did catch some sort of bacteria. And that's the reason why he passed. Not a lot of people know that. I think you're one of 2 people that actually know that now. And a bunch of people are now going to get intel on that.
Do you want that on record or no?
We can put that out there, man.
All right.
I don't mind. For me, I'd like to have that public because of that dog, my family is still here.
Yeah.
Because who knows what would have happened. Even the owner, Jason Adams, out of Prodigy Pits, he goes, I think that dog, because I had recently gotten him, he goes, I think that dog, his purpose was to land in your arms and your ownership, do that deed, and move. That's all it was there for.
Man.
We never got a chance to collect them, breed them, nothing of that sort.
I mean,
so my wife is so in love with Zilla. She goes, man, you got to put Chingon to Zilla. I can't, because Chingon is UKC single registered, and Zilla is ABKC.
Man,
make that matchup, and you say, fuck the paperwork, put it together. And that's where I have the issue where I'm like, I could make something beautiful out of this, but the morals say I shouldn't.